You know, some moments in history, they feel more like a legend, right? The Battle of Marathon is definitely one of those. I mean, you've got this tiny city-state facing off against the biggest empire on the planet. The fate of, well, everything we know as Western civilization pretty much hung in the balance on one single desperate gamble. So, let's dive in and unpack this incredible story.
And this is the big question, isn't it? It just sounds impossible. How on earth did this small group of citizen soldiers manage to stop a massive, professional imperial army in its tracks? I mean, how did they pull off what has to be one of the greatest upsets in all of military history?
Okay, so to really get what happened at the battle, we have to back up a little and figure out the why. This wasn't just some random invasion, you know. For the Persian Empire, this was personal. Oh yeah, very personal.
So you've got the Persian Empire, right? Under King Darius I. And you have to understand, these guys were the superpower of their time, the biggest and the baddest, and they were furious, absolutely livid. See, Athens had made the mistake of supporting a revolt inside Persian territory, and Darius, well, he was not going to let that slide. He was determined to make a brutal example of them. This whole invasion was about two things: punishment and expansion.
So when you look at the two armies side by side, the difference is just, wow, it's striking. On one side, you've got Athens and their buddies from Plataea. These are citizen soldiers, guys with farms and families, fighting to protect their actual homes. And on the other side, the massive professional war machine of Persia. We're talking archers, light infantry, all fighting for the glory of the empire and for conquest. I mean, you couldn't have two more different forces with more different motivations.
And let's talk numbers, because this is where it gets really crazy. The Persians show up with something like 25,000 troops. The Athenians and their allies, they managed to scrape together just 11,000. So they're outnumbered more than 2 to 1. To say the odds weren't in their favor, well, that's putting it very, very mildly.
So Athens is staring annihilation right in the face. They could have surrendered, right? But they didn't. Instead, they cook up a plan so daring, so completely audacious, that it was just crazy enough to maybe, just maybe, work.
Now, it's not like they were completely helpless. Athens had a few key advantages up its sleeve. For one, their soldiers, these guys called hoplites, were covered in heavy armor. They also knew the terrain like the back of their hand, and their morale, through the roof. I mean, they were fighting for their homes, their families, everything. And the biggest ace in the hole? They had this brilliant general named Miltiades.
See, Miltiades was smart. He really knew his enemy. He understood that the Persians' big strength was their archers and their cavalry. They loved to hit you from a distance. So the whole game for him was figuring out a strategy to take that advantage away from them, to neutralize it completely.
And the plan he came up with, it was pure genius. But man, was it risky. Okay, so first step, he deliberately weakens the middle of his own battle line. Sounds crazy, right? But here's the trick. He packs all his best soldiers, his best hoplites, onto the wings, onto the flanks. Then, instead of just marching forward, he orders his men to run, a full-on charge across the open plain. Why? To get through that deadly zone where the Persian archers could just pick them off. The final goal? For those super strong flanks to fold in and completely surround the Persian army, a classic envelopment.
All right, so the plan is set. The stage is the plain of Marathon. The two armies are facing each other. The fate of Athens, and maybe a lot more, is about to be decided in the next few hours.
I mean, just try to picture it. You're a Persian soldier, and you see this wall of bronze, heavily armored guys, and they're not walking, they're sprinting right at you, screaming. The Persians had never, ever seen anything like this. This crazy aggressive charge caught them totally off guard. It wrecked their formation and their whole game plan before the first sword was even swung.
And it worked just like Miltiades thought it would. The Persian center, seeing the weak Greek middle, pushed right through. But that was the trap. That's exactly what he wanted them to do. Because while they were pushing forward, the super strong Greek flanks held their ground, and then they turned inwards, crashing into the sides of the Persian army. All of a sudden, Persia's biggest strength, all of those soldiers, became their biggest weakness. They were packed in so tight, they couldn't move, couldn't fight effectively, they were trapped. The result? Well, it wasn't just a victory. It was a total rout, an absolute annihilation. Miltiades' insane gamble had paid off. Big time. Bigger than anyone could have possibly imagined.
When the dust settled, the Persians had lost something like 6,400 men. Just think about that. A staggering,
Humiliating defeat for the army that everyone thought was invincible. And the Athenians? Get this, they lost just 192 soldiers. 192. The difference is it's unbelievable. It's the ultimate proof of how effective their heavy armor, their training, and Miltiades' brilliant strategy really were.
But this victory was about so much more than just one battle. The shockwaves from this echoed for centuries. It didn't just save Athens, it literally helped shape the future. And believe it or not, its legacy is something we can still feel today.
So what's the big takeaway here? What did this victory really mean? Well, first off, it stopped the Persian invasion dead in its tracks. It sent a powerful message that a motivated army of citizens could absolutely stand up to a professional imperial force. But the biggest thing, the most important consequence, is that it saved Athens. And by saving Athens, it saved this brand new, radical idea they were trying out. An idea called democracy. You know, a system where the people, not some all-powerful king, hold the power. And of course, you can't talk about Marathon without talking about the run. The legend of the messenger, Phidippides. The story goes he ran the whole way, about 26 miles, from the battlefield back to Athens, burst in, shouted Nike, which means victory, and then collapsed and died. That incredible story of endurance is why in 1896, the first modern Olympic Games created a race in his honor. And today, the marathon is this worldwide symbol of pushing your limits, a direct line all the way back to this one battle.
So yeah, when you boil it all down, the story of Marathon is so much more than just a battle. It's this timeless example of what can happen when you combine sheer determination, brilliant strategy, and that incredible, enduring human spirit.
And that leaves us with one last kind of chilling question to think about. What if they had lost? What if Miltiades' wild gamble had failed? If the Persians had crushed Athens that day, the world we live in, the ideas we take for granted, like democracy, like freedom, it all could be completely, unimaginably different. It really makes you think, doesn't it?